Chosen one, heaven has marked this very night. You are not scrolling by accident. You are standing on sacred ground, disguised as an ordinary moment. The divine hand has paused time itself, so this message could find you. You have felt it in your spirit for days, haven't you? That quiet stirring, that holy unease, that whisper saying, something is about to shift. Tonight, that whisper becomes a roar. You were never forgotten. Every tear was counted. Every ache remembered. Every unanswered prayer stored in the vaults of eternity. And now, those stored prayers begin to overflow. This is not coincidence. This is divine intervention. God has chosen this exact night to reveal what the waiting was for. You thought delay meant denial, but it was preparation. Every closed door, every rejection, every season of silence was heaven aligning your steps to divine timing. Look around you, not with natural eyes, but with the eyes of faith. The air itself feels different. The spiritual atmosphere trembles. Because heaven has released an instruction concerning you. Angels have been dispatched with your name written on their assignments. The realm of darkness is trembling, because a chosen one is waking up to identity. You are that one. You are not average, not random, not forgotten. You carry a heavenly mark set apart, sealed, and sustained by the breath of God. It is written in the book of Isaiah, chapter 42, verse 31. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. This is the word over you tonight. Strength is returning to your spirit. Hope is rising again from the ashes of disappointment. You are not finished. You are being renewed. The weight that once broke you will now become the wings that lift you. You are about to soar beyond what limited you, beyond what tried to define you. There's a sound in heaven right now. The sound of pages turning, the chapter of pain closing, the chapter of purpose opening. God has seen your faith in the dark and is about to reward it in the light. This is the hour where hidden ones rise. You've been underestimated because your preparation was private, but your unveiling will be public. The same people who doubted you will witness what God does through you tonight. The Lord says, do not shrink back. Do not let fear convince you that this is too good to be true. You've been through the valley long enough. Now it's time to ascend the mountain. You've carried battles that were never yours to carry. You've tried to earn what was already written for you. Tonight, grace comes rushing in to remind you, your destiny is not achieved by striving. It is unlocked by surrender. Take this moment and breathe. Feel the divine stillness wrapping around you. Heaven is near. The same God who spoke galaxies into existence is whispering your name right now. You may feel ordinary, but the anointing resting on you is anything but. You are heaven's weapon, shaped by fire, refined by tears, chosen by design. And when God chooses a moment to move, it happens suddenly. That's what tonight carries, divine suddenlies. The kind of breakthrough that defies logic, the kind of peace that silences storms, the kind of favor that changes everything overnight. You have been positioned in the right place at the right time, and all that's required is your yes. So don't scroll away. Don't dismiss this as another message. You've heard many words before, but this one carries weight. This is your confirmation. The signs have been building all week, haven't they? The dreams, the repeated numbers, the sense that something unseen is approaching. Heaven is aligning the final pieces. You are stepping into your divine appointment. Chosen one. This is the moment to act. Let your heart respond. If your spirit bears witness that this word is yours, don't stay silent. Declare it. Type below, I receive it. Let the world and the heavens know that you are ready for what God is about to do. And as you do, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, so this word can reach every other chosen one still wandering in the dark. Because tonight, God is doing the greatest thing ever, and you are part of it. Comment 777 below as a prophetic sign that you align with heaven's move. This number symbolizes completion and divine perfection, everything falling into place under God's order. Tonight is not the end of your story, it's the turning of destiny's page. You can feel it now, the quiet movement of the unseen hand over your life. Something is shifting beneath the surface, where your eyes cannot see, but your spirit can sense. The same hand that shaped the stars, that painted galaxies in the dark, is rearranging the pattern of your path. Every twist that once confused you begins to form a divine symmetry. You were never walking alone. Heaven has been tracing your every step with precision. In this sacred hour, heaven is not silent. The orchestration of God is subtle but unstoppable. Doors that resisted you are beginning to respond to His command. Connections that seemed random are revealing divine purpose. You thought you were lost, but in truth, you were being led. The divine hand was guiding you through what looked like chaos toward perfect order. Every no was a redirection. Every delay was protection. Every detour was a recalibration of destiny. You might remember moments when it felt as though God had withdrawn, when prayers went unanswered and the heavens seemed brass above you. But He was never far. Like a master craftsman, He worked in silence, shaping the unseen foundation beneath what you thought was failure. What you perceived as absence was actually strategy. The unseen hand of God doesn't always move loudly. Sometimes it works in whispers, in pauses, in divine interruptions that save you from destruction. There were opportunities that fell apart at the last moment, and you thought you missed your chance. But heaven says otherwise. You didn't lose anything. He withheld what would have limited you. Some doors were not locked by the enemy. They were locked by God to preserve your future. Every unanswered prayer was heaven saying, not this, not yet, not here. And now, the same hand that withheld begins to release. What was restrained is now being restored. There is movement in the atmosphere, subtle, sure, supernatural. You may not see it with your natural eyes, but your spirit knows. There's a weight to the air tonight, the kind that precedes divine manifestation. It is the feeling right before heaven breaks through. You are learning the art of divine trust, the kind of faith that rests in uncertainty, knowing that the unseen hand never falters. The plan of God is not fragile. You cannot ruin what He has ordained. Even your mistakes, your wrong turns, your broken seasons are woven into the tapestry of purpose. Nothing is wasted. The pain that once confused you becomes prophecy fulfilled in hindsight. One day soon, you will look back and say, now I understand why it had to be this way. Edri, remember, the fingerprints of God are invisible but undeniable. When you trace your life in the light of revelation, you'll see His signature everywhere, in the people who entered your life for a moment but changed everything, in the places you were led to without reason, in the timing that defied logic yet turned out to be perfect. as was spoken in the sacred texts of old, in the book of Proverbs, chapter 3, verse 6. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. That is the anchor for this moment. God does not merely watch your path, he directs it. Every step you take under his guidance leads to divine convergence. The roads you thought were dead ends will soon reveal hidden passages. What you thought was a wilderness becomes holy ground. Chosen one. The unseen hand is not only guiding, it is guarding. There are battles you never had to fight because heaven fought them before you even knew they existed. There are dangers you never encountered because angels intercepted them in the unseen. You owe your survival not to chance, but to mercy. The hand of God has covered you, kept you, and now it begins to lift you. There is a reason you are still standing. When others fell, when storms came, when disappointment crushed expectations, you endured, not by your own strength, but because the unseen hand refused to let go. You've been held together by divine grip. And tonight that same hand begins to elevate you. Do not be afraid of the unknown ahead. The same God who guided you through darkness will guide you through dawn. His plans are not guesses, they are guarantees. Every step you take in obedience becomes a bridge toward the miracle waiting ahead. Even now, heaven whispers, "Trust my hand even when you cannot trace it." Emdom. So breathe again. Beloved, the path before you is not random. It is written. Every intersection, every encounter, every delay is part of a choreography divine in nature. The unseen hand moves with intention, and tonight it moves for you. The waiting has felt endless, hasn't it? The long, silent stretches where promises seem to fade, and hope felt too heavy to hold. You've prayed, you've cried, you've waited, and yet the heavens seemed still. But listen carefully. Chosen one, the weight of waiting is not punishment, it is preparation. Heaven never wastes a delay. Every second of stillness has been sacred. You have been in a divine holding pattern, not because you were forgotten, but because what's coming required a foundation strong enough to sustain glory. You cannot receive something eternal on a heart still shaped by impatience. God has been refining you, stripping away what could not go with you. You've been stretched, molded, and sometimes broken, but every moment was necessary. You see, destiny cannot be rushed. When the seed is buried, it looks like death, but underground, life is forming. You have been hidden, not buried, concealed, not forgotten. Heaven covered you until the right season, because exposure before maturity is destruction. The soil of silence protected you. The darkness you hated was womb, not tomb. There were moments you thought the promise expired, that maybe you misheard God. Maybe you weren't chosen after all. But even then, something in you refused to let go. That something was the Spirit himself, interceding when your strength failed. You were being anchored in faith, not feeling. You learned to walk when the light was gone. And now, that walk has become your weapon. Every tear, every lonely night, every unanswered question they built, spiritual muscle. You may not realize it yet, but what broke you also built you. What you lost actually enlarged you. The waiting season has been the secret school of the Spirit. Heaven has been teaching you how to carry weight, how to hold the blessing when it comes. Because what God is about to release will not be small. It will be greater than your capacity before the waiting began. The Apostle reminds us in his letter to the Romans, chapter 8, verse 28. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. No, that's not just a verse, it's your reality. Every delay, every detour, every disappointment is being repurposed for good. Nothing has been wasted. Even the pain that made no sense is being recycled into divine power. God is not just restoring you, he is rebuilding you with what tried to destroy you. Chosen one, you are at the threshold of divine timing. The waiting has accomplished its purpose. What once felt like chains now feels like clarity. You see with new eyes, love with new strength, believe with new fire. You are no longer the same. The old version of you couldn't carry the new assignment. So heaven had to let the old you die in the waiting room. And now, the divine clock strikes alignment. The seasons that resisted you are beginning to yield. Everything you prayed for in faith is moving toward manifestation. The tension you feel right now isn't delay, it's transition. It's the breaking of old ground to make way for new growth. Heaven is declaring, it is time. No, you've waited long enough for this birthing moment. The contraction before delivery is always the most painful, but it is also the most prophetic. Pain at this level doesn't come without purpose. It means the promise is close. What looked like the end was actually the push before breakthrough. Do you feel it? That holy trembling in your spirit. It's the vibration of heaven aligning with your obedience. The weight is lifting. The waiting is breaking. And in its place comes release. Not partial. Not delayed. Complete release. Chosen one. This is the moment to breathe in faith and exhale fear. The season of stillness has fulfilled its assignment. You are emerging refined, ready, radiant. The promise has not changed, but you have, and that's what heaven was waiting for. Before you move to the next word, pause and let your spirit respond. Something divine happens when you agree with heaven. So take a moment and write in the comments, I am ready. Lut, say it not as a wish, but as a declaration, because every time you speak faith, the atmosphere bends in your favor. Writing those words is not about algorithm or ritual, it's a prophetic act. It tells heaven, I'm done waiting in fear, I'm waiting in faith. It signals to the spirit realm that you've shifted from preparation to possession. The weight of waiting ends here. The promise begins now. You are standing on the threshold of fulfillment, and the heavens are watching your response. The unseen hand that guided you through darkness now opens the door before you. Step through it. Chosen one. The wait was not in vain. Chosen one. You have been through fires that few would have survived. You know what it means to be tested until everything familiar melts away. The pain you endured wasn't random, it was refining. Heaven doesn't waste suffering. The furnace you walked through wasn't meant to destroy you, but to define you. Every betrayal, every heartbreak, every tear was part of a divine process to separate gold from dross, purpose from pride, and faith from feeling. You didn't just survive, you were transformed. There are scars that now shine, like evidence of resurrection. You've learned that true strength isn't loud, it's steady. It's the quiet resolve that keeps walking when no one is watching. The faith that refuses to let go when everything collapses. You've walked through the valley of shadow and found out that light was within you all along. When you look back, you'll see it how the hardest seasons were holy ones. You thought you were being punished, but heaven was pruning. God was cutting away what couldn't go with you into your next chapter. The people who left, the doors that shut, the things that fell apart, they weren't rejections. They were redirections. Each loss cleared the space for glory. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Zechariah. Chapter 13, verse 9. I will bring that group through the fire and make them pure. I will refine them like silver and test them like gold. They will call on my name, and I will answer them. I will say, they are my people. And they will say, the Lord is our God. End of 40. The fire removed illusions. It stripped away the version of you that needed validation, that sought comfort more than calling. What emerged was truth, a spirit that fears no flame because it knows who stands in the fire. You are no longer intimidated by darkness because you've learned to glow in it. Remember when everything fell apart and you thought it was the end? It wasn't. It was the beginning of revelation. You learned what could be shaken and what could not. The false things burned. The true things remained. That's what refining does. It exposes the eternal within you. Now, as you step forward, the fragrance of the fire still clings to you. But it's not the scent of destruction, it's the aroma of survival. The world may call it resilience. Heaven calls it anointing. Oil is always pressed from something crushed. That's why your presence carries weight now. You've been crushed, pressed, and poured out. And from that process flows power. Don't despise the pain that produced your purity. Heaven's process is not always gentle, but it is always good. You prayed for power, and God sent pruning. You asked for wisdom, and He sent wilderness. You asked for strength, and He sent storms. Every answer came disguised as opposition. Because God's training ground is never comfort, it's fire. You may wonder why others seem to walk an easier path. Don't compare your calling to theirs. The greater the destiny, the deeper the refinement. Some are polished for display, you were forged for battle. That's why the fire was so fierce it was shaping a warrior, not a wanderer. Now, look within. Feel the peace that wasn't there before. The clarity that only comes after chaos. You've changed. You no longer panic when the heat rises. You remember what fire taught you, that God doesn't always put out the flames. Sometimes He joins you in them. That's the revelation that separates survivors from victors. You're not just someone who endured, you're someone who emerged, transformed. The flames didn't consume you, they consumed what wasn't you. What remains is the version heaven always intended. Chosen one. Stand tall in your scars. They are sacred testimonies of the places where heaven touched earth through your pain. Every burn became a beacon. Every crack became a doorway for light. You carry holy fire now, not the fire that destroys, but the fire that purifies. The same heat that once broke you now burns through you to heal others. This is the reason you had to go through it all, so that your story would carry authority. You can speak deliverance because you've lived deliverance. You can lead others out of flames because you've walked through them yourself. The fire made you a vessel of glory. So do not fear the memory of pain. It is proof of purpose fulfilled. The refining is complete. The gold has been revealed. You, chosen one, are the testimony of a God who turns ashes into armor and wounds into weapons of light. Something sacred is happening. Chosen one. The air around you feels thin, almost transparent, like the veil between heaven and earth has begun to tear. You sense it, don't you? That holy tension, that quiet electricity running through the unseen. It's the moment before dawn, the breath before breakthrough. Heaven is close, closer than it's ever been. You've walked through storms, through nights that swallowed sound, through prayers that echoed with no reply. But now, something shifts. It's not imagination, it's invitation. Heaven is leaning toward you. The veil is thinning. You are about to glimpse what eyes have not seen and ears have not heard. This is the sacred in-between, the place where human strength ends and divine power begins. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine the edge of a sunrise breaking over a long, dark mountain. That first sliver of gold cutting through shadow. That's what is happening in your spirit right now. The night of confusion is over. Light is cracking open the horizon of your soul. God is saying, you have endured the dark long enough. Now, look up. The prophet David wrote these words long ago, words that still burn with life. We are reminded through the writings of David in the Psalms, chapter 30, verse 5. Weeping may stay for the night, but rejoicing comes in the morning. That's your promise. Your mourning is ending. Your morning is here. The sorrow that stayed overnight cannot survive the dawn that heaven has declared over you. Every tear watered the seed of joy that is now breaking through the soil of your spirit. The pain was not wasted. It was producing fruit. This is why you feel the shift so strongly. Heaven is lifting the curtain, showing you that the pain had purpose all along. The veil that once separated understanding from revelation is dissolving. You are beginning to see with spiritual eyes. What once terrified you now testifies for you. The very storms that tried to drown you are now pushing you to the shore of destiny. Listen, God is not far. He is near enough to whisper. He is not angry with you. He is aligning you. Sometimes the silence was not distance. It was divine concentration. Heaven has been preparing your stage, setting the scenery, orchestrating divine timing. You were never abandoned. You were being positioned. And when that veil thins, you begin to perceive beauty in what once felt like chaos. You realize that every delay was choreography. Every closed door was choreography. Every lonely night was choreography. You were dancing to a rhythm heaven had written, even when you couldn't hear the music. This is where I need you to pause, not as a listener, but as a witness. What is stirring in your heart right now isn't just emotion, it's recognition. Your spirit recognizes home. This message isn't reaching you by chance, it's reaching you by design. You are hearing this because heaven scheduled it. And if this word is awakening something deep inside you, don't let it pass like a fleeting breeze. Capture it, anchor it, let it become seed within your spirit. Sometimes a single word, spoken at the right moment, can shift the course of a destiny. If this has been that word for you, if it touched that hidden corner of your soul that only God knows, then help me carry it further. Share it the way you'd pass a lantern down a dark path. Somewhere out there, another soul is stumbling through their night, desperate for the light you've just found. When you share this, you're not just spreading words, you're spreading warmth. When you like or subscribe, you're not feeding an algorithm, you're feeding a mission. You're saying, yes, let this fire keep burning. You see, every click, every share, every act of connection becomes a ripple of light in the digital sea. The message of heaven travels through the simplest gestures of obedience, and through that flow, more chosen ones wake up, more hearts heal, more faith rekindles. That's how revival moves, not always from pulpits or stages, but from screens glowing with truth. So, beloved chosen one, if this message found you tonight, it wasn't random, it was written. The veil has thinned for you. Heaven is breaking through, and your story is about to become the proof that darkness never wins. Let your life be the evidence that the morning always comes, and as the light rises over your soul, let's carry it together, one spark, one word, one heart at a time. The atmosphere of heaven is thick around you tonight. Chosen one, the clock of destiny has struck an invisible hour, the prophetic hour. Something unseen, yet undeniable, is unfolding over your life. The angels have already taken their positions. The Spirit is stirring, and heaven's attention is fixed on you. There are moments in time when eternity leans in, and tonight is one of them. The spiritual realm is alive with motion, angels ascending and descending like sparks in the night sky. You may not see them, but you can feel them. The air is charged, as if creation itself is holding its breath, waiting for your obedience. Heaven has issued an order, and all that remains is your response. There have been many nights where you prayed and heard nothing. You wondered if heaven had gone silent, if maybe your prayers were too small, your faith too tired. But tonight, heaven breaks its silence. The delay was not denial, it was alignment. The appointed time has arrived. You are standing under an open heaven. The old cycle has ended, and a new one has begun. What was once blocked now flows freely. Doors that resisted you are beginning to respond to the key of divine timing. The spiritual resistance that once pressed against your progress has lifted because heaven has released the decree of breakthrough. The prophetic hour is when things that were once spoken in secret begin to manifest in the visible realm. Promises, once carried as burdens, now take form as blessings. You are about to see with your eyes what your faith has already seen for years. The shift you have felt in your spirit is not imagination, it is confirmation. Heaven speaks clearly through the words in Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 12. The Lord will open the heavens, the storehouse of his bounty, to send rain on your land in season and to bless all the work of your hands. Look, that word belongs to you tonight. The heavens are opening. The season of scarcity ends. What was dry begins to overflow. The storehouse of God's bounty is releasing what was withheld, not because you earned it, but because the appointed time has come. Chosen one. This is why the warfare intensified lately. The darkness knew what was coming before you did. The attacks, the confusion, the heaviness, all of it was an attempt to distract you before the release. But you endured. You stood your ground when it would have been easier to give up. And because of that faith, heaven now honors your endurance. Imagine a river blocked by stones. Pressure builds behind the dam until one moment crack. The wall gives way, and everything held back rushes forward in unstoppable flow. That's what's happening right now in your life. Every prayer, every tear, every act of obedience, they've all gathered behind the dam of divine timing. And now, God says, let it flow. You've been waiting for years. But heaven doesn't measure by years, it measures by readiness. And tonight, you are ready. The prophetic hour doesn't wait for convenience, it waits for completion. The work inside you has reached its fullness. The faith forged in silence now activates the promise spoken in eternity. Even now, as you read these words, your spirit is awakening to divine urgency. Not panics, but purpose. You can feel the vibration of heaven inside your chest. That's your confirmation. The angels are in position. The order has been released. The only thing heaven needs now is your agreement. If this word is stirring something in your heart, don't ignore it. Heaven listens to your response. Faith is not silent. It speaks. It declares. It aligns. And tonight, that alignment begins with your declaration. Type 444 inches, the comments, as a prophetic act. This number symbolizes divine order and angelic movement, heaven establishing structure in the chaos, bringing harmony where there was confusion. As you type it, you are saying, I align with heaven's timing. I welcome divine order. I receive what is mine. End of. It may seem simple, but spiritual power often hides in simple obedience. Every act of agreement becomes a doorway for heaven to move. Don't underestimate what a word, a gesture, a number can do when faith is attached. The prophetic hour is here, and it will not pass you by. Stand still for a moment and feel it, the rhythm of heaven pulsing through your atmosphere. This is not just another night. This is the night God scheduled to prove that His promises never expire. You have stepped into divine synchronization. What was spoken over you long ago is now unfolding before you. The angels move when you move. Heaven responds when you respond. The decree has been issued. Blessing is released. Order is restored. The appointed time has come. And, chosen one, breathe this truth deeply. Heaven is not far, it is here. And the same God who set the stars in motion has just realigned your life for glory. The night deepens. Chosen one. But it no longer feels like darkness. It feels like destiny. There's a sacred stillness, a divine pause in the air. Heaven leans in again, not with thunder, but with memory. This is the hour when God brings back to your remembrance the covenant of destiny, the promises He whispered long before you had the strength to believe them. Do you remember those moments? The dreams that felt too vivid to be random, the visions that startled you awake, leaving a fire in your chest, the words that came through others and confirmed what your spirit already knew. Those weren't coincidences. They were pieces of an ancient script, your divine contract written in heaven's ink before you ever took your first breath. You were chosen long before you were aware of being chosen. Every gift, every desire, every holy restlessness was placed inside you as evidence of that covenant. The reason you've never been able to settle for ordinary life is because your spirit remembers extraordinary promises. Deep calls unto deep. Eternity calls out from within you, reminding you of what you carry. This is not the time to doubt your worth. You've been walking through fire, not because you were forgotten, but because you were remembered. Every challenge, every delay, every battle has been part of the fulfillment of a covenant older than time. You are walking through prophecy. Your life itself is a living scripture being written daily by divine hands. You may have felt forsaken, but even that was foreseen. The covenant didn't break when you fell, it remained when you couldn't. Grace held the pen steady when your strength failed, even in your rebellion. The promise waited patiently, untouched by your mistakes. That's the power of covenant. It's not dependent on your perfection, but on His promise. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Isaiah, chapter 55, verse 11. So shall my word be that goes out from my mouth. It shall not return to me empty, but it shall accomplish what I desire and achieve the purpose for which I sent it. And that word has been chasing you all your life. It cannot return void. It cannot fail. The promises hovering over your destiny will find their fulfillment. You can run. You can fall. You can even forget, but the word cannot die. It is immortal, and it carries your name within it. There are moments when you question if it's still possible, if the years have stolen too much, if the damage has gone too deep. But God smiles over your doubt, because He knows the timeline you cannot see. The covenant doesn't weaken with time, it deepens. What feels delayed is simply gathering depth and beauty behind the scenes, like wine in the dark. It matures until it's ready to be poured. Heaven has not changed its mind about you. The promise remains active. The covenant still breathes. What God began in secret, He will complete in glory. The words spoken over your life are still echoing in heaven's chambers. The angels still carry the memory of what was declared. Every time you speak faith, those echoes grow stronger until they manifest in reality. You've wondered why you've always felt like you were made for something more. It's because the covenant in you won't let you rest in mediocrity. You can't blend in because heaven marked you for distinction. You can't settle because your spirit remembers its divine assignment. The ache you feel is not dissatisfaction, it's divine hunger. Every true covenant carries both promise and pressure. The promise lifts you, but the pressure shapes you. You have been pressed, not punished, refined, not rejected. Heaven presses those it intends to promote. The greater the covenant, the stronger the shaping. That's why your battles have felt personal. They are. You are being prepared for visibility, and visibility requires strength. Now, the same God who spoke over your life at the beginning whispers again tonight. The promise still stands. The vision is still alive. Even when your hope wavered, heaven's word remained anchored. You are walking in a circle of fulfillment. Every step forward brings you closer to the manifestation of what was written before time. Chosen one, feel the stillness around you. That's not emptiness, it's expectation. The covenant is stirring. Heaven is remembering. Earth is aligning. And your spirit is awakening. The same hand that wrote your beginning is now writing your unveiling. You are entering the phase where prophecy becomes performance. You've believed, waited, endured, and now the ink of heaven begins to dry into form. The promises of old are awakening like seeds that have waited for the right season to break open. So lift your head. What you thought was forgotten was simply hidden for maturation. What you assumed was over is only beginning. The covenant is alive, breathing, and burning brighter than ever before. And soon, the world will see what heaven always knew. You are not just called, you are kept, chosen one. Heaven moves like a tide tonight, soft but unstoppable. You may not hear trumpets or thunder, yet something eternal is shifting. The great exchange has begun. What you carried in sorrow, God now trades for strength. What you wore in shame, He replaces with a crown. The garments of grief fall away. and a robe of glory settles upon you. For so long, you've been carrying the weight of things that were never yours to bear: guilt, regret, the residue of broken seasons. You've blamed yourself for what others abandoned. You've tried to hold together what heaven meant to release. But tonight, the divine transaction begins. Heaven extends its hand, saying, "Give it to me. Every burden, every disappointment, every hidden ache, place it here. And in return, something far greater is offered. Peace replaces fear. Clarity replaces confusion. Joy replaces heaviness. The great exchange is not about earning, it's about surrender. It's about letting go of what cannot live in your next season so you can hold what's meant to last forever. There's a stillness in heaven right now, waiting for your release. You've been praying for new doors to open, yet your hands have been full of old battles. You cannot carry both bondage and blessing at once. The old must leave so the new can land. That's why God sometimes shakes what feels stable. He's freeing your grip. Chosen one, what you lost was not theft, it was trade. Every time you thought something precious was being taken, heaven was actually making room. The pruning wasn't punishment, it was preparation. You had to lose lesser things to make space for greater glory. That's what exchange looks like. It feels like loss, but it ends as increase. The voice of God thundered in the book of Isaiah, chapter 61, verse 3, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. No, that is heaven's decree over you tonight. The ashes of your past are not your identity. The mourning that once defined your nights will now give birth to morning joy. The heaviness that clung to your spirit like fog will lift, replaced by the lightness of divine restoration. Let this truth sink into the marrow of your soul. What God gives in exchange is always greater than what He takes. When you release pain, He gives purpose. When you release confusion, He gives clarity. When you release control, He gives completion. It's the mathematics of grace. Heaven never subtracts without multiplying later. Look back for a moment, not in regret, but in revelation. The very moments that broke you were birthing new understanding. The tears you cried weren't wasted. They watered the soil for future joy. Every disappointment was a seed. Every heartbreak was a hidden door. And now, heaven is unlocking those doors. You've lived long enough carrying invisible weights, expectations, self-doubt, unspoken guilt. You've smiled through storms and kept moving, even when no one noticed the cracks beneath your strength. But now, the Lord says, trade it. You don't have to perform peace anymore, you can possess it. You don't have to pretend you're fine, you can finally be free. There's a divine lightness coming over you. Chosen one. The heaviness that made even breathing feel like labor begins to lift. The lies that whispered you are not enough are being silenced. Heaven is rewriting your self-image, reminding you that you were never the burden, you were the blessing. This great exchange is not a one-time event, it's a continual rhythm of heaven. Every time you lay something down, God lays something better upon you. Every surrender becomes seed for a greater harvest. That's why those who yield most shine brightest, because they've learned the secret of divine trade. You've carried so much, for so long, that sometimes you forget how to rest. But the exchange includes rest. You don't have to fight every battle. Some battles end not when you win, But when you stop wrestling what's already finished, let God fight what only He can conquer. Let His peace do what your striving never could. As you release, you make room for revelation. New clarity begins to form. Suddenly, the pain makes sense. The closed doors reveal purpose. The heartbreaks show patterns. You begin to see the fingerprint of God even in your suffering. That is the final phase of the exchange, when gratitude replaces grief. Chosen one. Breathe. Heaven is not asking for perfection, only permission to take what hurts and hand you what heals. To replace what was temporary with what is eternal. To exchange ashes for beauty, tears for testimony, weakness for wonder. You've lived long enough carrying what was meant to be released. Now you will live in the freedom of what's been divinely received. And when people look at you and ask how you still shine after all you've lost, you'll smile and say, because heaven traded with me. And you can feel it, the shift in the spirit. Subtle but strong. The air carries both tension and triumph. Something holy is happening beneath the surface, but not without resistance. Because when heaven prepares to release glory, the darkness grows desperate. The enemy senses your awakening, and he knows he's losing his grip. This is his last stand. The warfare you've faced lately, the sudden heaviness, the strange confusion, the emotional storms that came from nowhere, they weren't random. They were strategic. The enemy saw the light forming around you and tried to shroud it before it fully broke through. But what he forgot is that you've already been refined by fire. You are no longer easy to shake. The enemy only attacks what carries threat. That's why your battle has been so personal, because your calling is powerful. The darkness doesn't waste energy on the indifferent. It targets the destined. And you, chosen one, are the embodiment of destiny. Heaven marked you long ago, and hell has been trying to erase that mark ever since. But here's the divine truth. The battle was never equal. Darkness cannot comprehend light. And your light is not fading, it's expanding. You felt pressure from every side because heaven is enlarging your territory. Resistance is the announcement that breakthrough is near. The shaking you feel is not destruction, it's delivery. The Apostle reminds us in his letter to the Ephesians, chapter 6, verse 13, "Therefore put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may stand firm." You have stood, even when standing felt impossible, and heaven noticed every sleepless night, every whispered prayer, every tear that fell onto weary hands. They were counted as acts of war. You didn't just survive, you fought, and your endurance has become your weapon. Now, the enemy's last attempt is desperation. He throws shadows that look like mountains, lies that sound like truth, and distractions disguised as peace. He's not creative, he's repetitive. He repeats the same attacks, hoping you'll respond differently. But this time, you won't. You've seen too much, grown too much, and believed too deeply to be shaken by old tricks. He tries to whisper, "It's over," but heaven declares, "It's only beginning." He tries to say, "You're alone," but angels surround you like fire. He tries to convince you, "You failed," but God says, "You've been faithful." The war around you is not proof that you're losing, it's proof that you're carrying something worth fighting for. The darkness knows your potential more clearly than you do. That's why it's fought so hard to silence your voice, to make you doubt your worth. to wear you down until surrender felt tempting. But you didn't quit. That refusal was victory in disguise. Every time you rose again, heaven recorded it as triumph. Every time you forgave when it hurt, angels applauded. Every time you worshipped through tears, you weakened the enemy's hold. You didn't just survive the battle, you rewrote its outcome. Now, the atmosphere shifts. The enemy's voice grows faint because his time is up. Heaven is turning the page. The story no longer centers on your struggle, but on your strength. You have been trained by trial, and the fire that once burned you now bows to you. The same battlefield that wounded you will soon become your testimony ground. So when the whispers of fear come again, and they will stand still, don't explain. Don't panic. Don't retreat. Just stand. Because your standing terrifies darkness more than any weapon could. You've learned the secret. The one who refuses to quit cannot be defeated. Chosen one. This is your reminder. The enemy's last stand is heaven's signal that the victory is already sealed. The shaking will stop. The confusion will clear. And when the dust settles, you'll realize that the very storm sent to bury you has uncovered your crown. If your spirit feels that truth resonating deep tonight, let your heart respond. Type, "Still I stand," in the comments. Say it not as a slogan, but as a declaration of survival. You are saying to heaven, "I refuse to bow to fear." And you are saying to darkness, "I'm still here and I'm not leaving." No, because that simple sentence carries divine defiance. It's more than words, it's warfare. It announces to every unseen force that no matter how hard the battle, the chosen ones rise. Always. The enemy's last stand only proves one thing, that your dawn has already begun. Chosen one. You can feel the command rising inside you, the divine summons to rise. Not just to stand up physically, but to rise in spirit, in identity, in authority. Heaven has spoken, and the atmosphere around you begins to respond. This is no ordinary moment, it's a sacred uprising. For years, you've been walking bent under burdens that weren't yours. You've carried the weight of old expectations, the opinions of others, the ghosts of past failures. You've apologized for your light just to make others comfortable in their shadows. But no more. The command has been released. Rise. When God speaks, His word does not suggest it shifts. It changes reality. The same voice that told Lazarus to come forth now echoes in your direction. And when heaven commands, even what was dead must obey. Every dormant dream, every silent gift, every buried purpose begins to stir. What once lay still within you begins to breathe again. The voice of God still thunders through the ages, as it did in the Gospel of Mark. Chapter 5, verse 41. He took her by the hand and said to her, "Talitha cum," little girl, get up. That is the word over your life tonight. Get up. Rise from fear. Rise from shame. Rise from the belief that you are too late, too broken, too small. You are none of those things. You are chosen, crafted, anointed. What has been asleep in you is about to stand. You've been living beneath your true height, folding yourself to fit spaces that were never meant to contain you. Heaven is expanding your territory now. When you rise, everything connected to you rises too. Your family, your purpose, your influence, You become like the tide that lifts every boat in the harbor. Sometimes rising isn't loud, it's steady. It looks like deciding to believe again. It looks like forgiving yourself. It looks like waking up one morning and saying, "This is the last day I live beneath my calling." You don't have to roar to rise. Even a whisper can shake the heavens when it's spoken in faith. You may not realize it yet, but the world has been waiting for your rising. There are hearts tied to your obedience. There are souls who will find their way because you chose not to stay down. That's why the enemy fought so hard to keep you buried, because he knew what would happen if you ever stood up again. And now, here you are standing, not as you once were, but as heaven always saw you. There's power in your posture. The moment you rise, you send a ripple through the unseen. Angels move. Shadows scatter. Chains that held generations begin to break. So breathe deeply. Chosen one, feel the divine wind at your back. You're not rising alone. Heaven is lifting you. The same Spirit that raised Christ from the dead dwells in you, and it is pulling you upward with divine momentum. If these words are stirring something sacred in you, if you feel that lift inside your chest, that's the Spirit saying, "It's time." And if you sense that, then help carry this message further. Let your obedience become light for someone else's night. When you like this message, you're adding oil to the flame. When you share it, you're passing the torch forward. And when you subscribe, you're saying, "Keep speaking. Heaven, I'm still listening." Because this isn't about building a platform, it's about building people. It's about creating a circle of light in a world drowning in noise. Somewhere out there, another soul is on the floor, whispering prayers that sound like goodbyes. They're waiting for a voice that says, "Rise." Your simple act of sharing could become the very bridge that carries them from despair to destiny. Don't underestimate the quiet ways heaven moves through our hands. Think of it like this: you've been given a lantern. The flame within it is truth, warmth, and hope. Every time you pass it forward, darkness loses territory. That's what this is, a chain of light, stretching farther than any of us can see. So, as you rise tonight, take someone else with you. Lift your head high, straighten your shoulders, and walk forward into the calling that was waiting for you all along. The command to rise wasn't given just for you, it was given through you. You are both the miracle and the messenger. Heaven's word is clear: get up. And as you do, every shadow that once held you will bow to the light, now burning in your steps. The air grows dense again, not with fear, but with wonder. You can almost hear it, the soft hum of wings in the unseen. The gathering of angels has begun. They move like light across the invisible, forming an encirclement around you. Heaven's host is assembling in obedience to divine command. You may feel alone in the natural, but in the spirit, you are surrounded. This is the moment when the invisible army takes its place. Every angel assigned to your life steps forward, carrying the weight of heaven's decree. Their movements are not random, they follow rhythm. Précision. Divine chorégraphie. Each one knows its assignment: to protect, to guide, to deliver messages, to war on your behalf. You've heard the phrase before: the battle is not yours. You believed it, yet still tried to fight with human hands. But now, heaven shows you that you were never meant to win this by strength. You were meant to stand while heaven fought for you. Angels do not need your perfection. They respond to your faith. The smallest act of belief becomes a trumpet call in the unseen, summoning armies of light, as was spoken in the sacred texts of old. In the second book of Kings, chapter 6, verse 17, and Elisha prayed, "Open his eyes, Lord, so that he may see." Then the Lord opened the servant's eyes, and he looked and saw the hills full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. That scripture isn't just history, it's happening again. This time for you. The hills of your life, once shrouded in fear, are filled with fire. The same God who opened Elisha's servant's eyes is opening yours. You are surrounded by a glory unseen, an army of light stationed for your defense. These angels are not distant figures of imagination, they are the living embodiment of heaven's loyalty. Some stand guard at thresholds, ensuring that what's coming cannot be stolen. Some stand near your mind, silencing lies before they settle into belief. Others walk beside you in quietness, ensuring every step aligns with divine timing. You've brushed past them in your despair and called yourself alone, not realizing the air shimmered with guardians unseen. Every sigh you've ever released in surrender, heaven heard it. Every night you fell asleep, weeping, angels were stationed beside your bed. Every time you drove home, lost in thought and tears, they rode with you, shielding you from unseen danger. You didn't just survive, you were preserved. The gathering of angels isn't only protection, it's preparation. Heaven is mobilizing for manifestation. When God releases His will in the earth, He often does it through His messengers. These celestial beings are aligning circumstances, arranging divine meetings, whispering into hearts that will cross your path. They are setting the table for your next chapter before you arrive. Sometimes what feels like coincidence is actually coordination. The unexpected call, the sudden opportunity, the timely provision, none of it is random. Those are angelic fingerprints. Heaven's messengers are weaving strands of destiny so seamlessly that it feels natural. But behind the natural is the supernatural hand at work. You are not forgotten, not uncovered, not unguarded. You walk in the midst of an invisible company sworn to your promise, and when you walk in obedience, you give them permission to move without hindrance. The moment you align your heart with heaven, the atmosphere around you becomes alive with movement. The gathering of angels signifies that your season of vulnerability is closing. The assignments against you have been intercepted. The weapons formed in darkness are dissolving mid-air. The Lord of hosts has taken command of your battle, and His armies do not lose. Take a moment and feel it not as imagination, but as awareness. You can sense the peace that follows their presence, the calm that enters the room when heaven fills it. The weight lifts, not because your circumstances changed yet, but because you are no longer carrying them alone. Angels move faster than fear. They speak language deeper than words. Their mission is simple: to ensure the fulfillment of the word spoken over you. Nothing can block them, for they operate under divine authority. When God says, "Go," they go. When He says, "Protect," they surround. You've spent years thinking you had to fight alone, but tonight, heaven reminds you that you are never alone in the battlefield of faith. The gathering of angels is proof that the unseen realm honors your unseen obedience. Every time you chose forgiveness over bitterness, worship over worry, peace over panic, they came closer. Now they stand, waiting, waiting for the next word, the next command, the next moment of faith from your lips that will activate heaven's movement again. And in that waiting, there is harmony, a divine stillness that says, "It is already handled, chosen one." Let this truth settle deeply in your soul. The war may still echo, but the victory is already guarded. You are surrounded by light, defended by fire, upheld by unseen hands that have never failed. The gathering of angels is complete. Heaven has taken its stance, and now all that remains is the unfolding of what they came to deliver. Something profound unfolds in the unseen tonight. Chosen one, the sealing of the chosen. You've walked through fire, through silence, through battles that only heaven truly saw. And now you reach a moment that changes everything. Heaven bends low, not to test you, but to mark you. The seal is not a symbol, it's ownership. It is heaven's way of saying, "This one is mine." End quote. You may not feel different at first. The marking of God doesn't always arrive with thunder or vision. Sometimes it comes as a stillness in your chest, a sacred awareness that your spirit is being claimed for divine purpose. That stillness you feel right now, that holy quiet, that's heaven working. There's a weight to this kind of moment, a holiness that words can barely touch. You have crossed through seasons where identity was challenged, where your worth was questioned, where voices tried to convince you that you were forgotten, but God never left. He waited until you could recognize His whisper again, and now that whisper carries your name, written in light. The Spirit spoke through the Apostle Paul in his letter to the Ephesians, chapter 1, verse 13. "And you also were included in Christ when you heard the message of truth, the gospel of your salvation. When you believed, you were marked in Him with a seal, the promised Holy Spirit, and that mark is what rests on you now. It is not visible to the natural eye, but the spiritual realm recognizes it instantly. Darkness trembles at it. Angels respond to it. Heaven honors it. You've been claimed by something eternal, and no human hand can erase what heaven has inscribed. The seal means you belong to purpose, to destiny, to the divine timeline, written for you before creation's dawn. It's why ordinary life has never fit you. You were crafted for kingdom work, even when you didn't know it. Every trial was not random pain, it was preparation for consecration. Heaven cannot seal what hasn't been surrendered, and you have surrendered enough for heaven to call it finished. From this moment on, there will be a visible difference, not because of appearance, but because of presence. People will sense something about you, peace that feels unexplainable, authority that feels gentle yet unshakable. It is not arrogance, it's anointing. You've been set apart, not to rise above others, but to lift them. You carry the fragrance of heaven now, the kind that lingers long after you leave a room. The sealing also means covering, the same way blood marked the doorposts in Egypt so that destruction had to pass over. Your life now carries divine exemption. The storm may rage around you, but it cannot devour you. The enemy may observe, but he cannot touch what's sealed. This mark does not make you untouchable by trial, but it makes you unbreakable by it. You've been sealed for sacred assignments ahead, ones you may not yet understand. But don't worry. The seal doesn't just protect, it guides. It draws you toward divine opportunities, people, and places that align with heaven's map for your destiny. It pulls you out of wrong rooms and ushers you into divine corridors. This is why you've felt separation lately. Not rejection, redirection. Heaven is removing distractions and voices that can't recognize your new identity. The seal cannot share space with confusion. It demands alignement. Chosen one. As you read these words, let this moment be your silent yes. Heaven doesn't seal those who resist it, seals those who yield. You've yielded, even when trembling, and heaven has noticed. That's why the marking happens tonight. There will be evidence. Peace will rest where panic once lived. Wisdom will flow where confusion once reigned. And strength will rise from places that once felt weak. You'll begin to discern spiritual currents more clearly, because the seal sharpens your perception. It tunes your spirit to heaven's frequency. This isn't emotion, it's initiation. You've crossed from wandering into belonging. The wilderness ends here. The seal isn't just for recognition, it's a promise. You will never walk alone again. And if this word resonates deep in your soul, if something inside you whispers, "This is me," then let heaven hear your agreement. Write the number 555 inches, the comments. This number symbolizes divine grace multiplied and transformation completed. It's your public act of saying, "I am sealed. I am chosen. I am His." Each number typed becomes a declaration in the spirit realm, a signal to heaven that you understand the magnitude of this moment. You are stepping into a sealed covenant, and that covenant cannot be broken. Let the peace of that truth rest upon you now. Heaven has marked you. The seal is set. You are chosen, and nothing can unchoose what God has claimed. Chosen one. Something begins to stir deep within you. Tonight, the awakening of power. The seal that heaven placed upon you is not dormant. It carries the spark of divine authority. What once felt quiet and hidden now starts to burn. This is not the same strength you once relied on, the kind that came from striving or willpower. No, this is different. This is sacred strength, holy power, awakening from within. It doesn't crash into your life all at once. It unfolds like dawn, slowly, steadily. The light begins to rise, and everything within you responds to its warmth. You've carried power all along, but it was buried beneath fear, self-doubt, and the weight of old battles. Heaven didn't forget what it placed inside you. It was simply waiting for the right moment to activate it. That moment has come. There is a rhythm in the spirit right now. You can almost feel it, the pulse of heaven beating in sync with your own heart. Each breath you take becomes an echo of divine life. You are being reintroduced to your own authority, the kind that doesn't need to shout to be heard. It's quiet, confident, unshakable. You remember, don't you, how often you've felt powerless, how often you stood before challenges that towered over you, whispering, "I can't do this." But tonight, heaven answers. You can, because you were never meant to face giants in your own strength. You were meant to face them in His. The same Spirit that raised Christ from the dead lives within you. That's not metaphor, that's reality. As Jesus Himself declared in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 10, verse 19, "Behold, I have given you authority to trample on snakes and scorpions, and over all the power of the enemy, nothing will harm you." That verse isn't about fear, it's about function. You were not created to cower before darkness, but to command it to move. The awakening of power means you stop asking for permission to exist and start walking in the authority already given. You stop hoping for change and start becoming it. The world around you may not understand the quiet transformation happening within you. They might mistake your stillness for weakness, but heaven knows its strategy. A lion doesn't announce its roar, it simply waits for the right moment. That's what you are now, poised power. The awakening begins subtly. You start to speak differently. You notice your thoughts changing, aligning with truth rather than fear. The things that used to drain you now lose their grip. You no longer respond from panic, but from presence. That's the evidence of awakening, the shift from reaction to revelation. The gifts inside you that once felt distant now begin to rise again. Words flow more freely. Dreams return with clarity. Insight deepens. You find yourself discerning things you couldn't before. The spiritual senses sharpen, not through effort, but through intimacy. The closer you draw to God, the more His power naturally radiates through you. And make no mistake, this power is not for domination or pride. It's for healing, for building, for bringing light into places long forgotten by hope. Power without compassion becomes corruption, but power born from love becomes restoration. You are called to restore, to remind others of their own divine spark. Your awakening becomes a ripple that ignites others to rise too. You are stepping into a season where your words will carry unusual weight. You'll speak life into places that have been dry for years. People will feel peace simply by being near you, not because of you, but because of who flows through you. You will lay hands on situations not always physically, but spiritually, and watch them shift. The awakening also changes how you see opposition. You stop interpreting it as a threat and begin to recognize it as confirmation. Resistance reveals where your power is most effective. The enemy doesn't waste energy on the powerless, so when battles come, you'll learn to smile, knowing they are proof that heaven is active within you. This awakening isn't loud or theatrical. It's steady and pure. It's the quiet fire that refuses to go out. The power awakening in you tonight will not just sustain you, it will overflow from you. Every room you enter will feel different because you'll bring heaven's current with you. Chosen one. This is not the rise of pride but of purpose. You are not awakening to boast, you are awakening to bless. The hand of God has touched the flame within you, and it will not go dark again. What once was small now grows unstoppable. What once was hidden now shines. You are no longer waiting for power to come. You are learning to release what's already there. Heaven has awakened its force within you, and now your very presence carries permission for others to believe again. Chosen one. What happens now is not a whisper, but a revelation, the glory unveiled. For years, you have carried something luminous within you, hidden beneath layers of waiting, testing, and quiet surrender. You have felt its weight, but could not yet name it. It was glory, not the kind sought by the world, but the kind heaven hides in ordinary vessels until the appointed moment. That moment has come. The unveiling begins softly, almost imperceptibly. It's like the first break of dawn after a long night. The darkness doesn't disappear instantly, it recedes, bowing to light that grows stronger with each passing second. That's what's happening within you. The darkness that surrounded your calling is bowing to the glory rising inside you. You were never empty. You were incubating radiance. Glory, in heaven's language, is not decoration, it's evidence. It is the visible proof of invisible faithfulness. Every tear, every trial, every unseen act of obedience has condensed into light. And now that light begins to show through you. It is not pride, it is fulfillment. You have been faithful in secret. And now heaven reveals what was planted there long ago, as was declared in the second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 3, verse 18. And we all, who with unveiled faces contemplate the Lord's glory, are being transformed into his image with ever-increasing glory, which comes from the Lord, who is the Spirit. Oh, that is your story, transformation through unveiling. What others see as sudden is actually the fruit of years in the shadows. You've been transformed from the inside out, molded by invisible hands that never stopped shaping you. The unveiling is not about showing off your strength, but showing forth his. When glory unveils, it does not shout, it radiates. It doesn't demand attention, it draws it naturally. The presence you carry begins to speak before your words do. People sense something different, something they can't quite describe. That's because glory is not sound, it's atmosphere. You carry heaven's atmosphere now. Look back for a moment. Remember the times you asked God, "Why me?" The times you wondered why the weight felt heavier for you than for others. It was because he placed greater glory in you. The heavier the calling, the brighter the unveiling. The oil that flows from your life is richer because it was pressed through deeper pain. This unveiling is not a spotlight moment, it's a sunrise moment. It does not come to exalt you, but to expose him through you. Glory is never owned, it's reflected, like the moon reflects sunlight. Your life reflects divine brilliance. Every place you once felt broken becomes a mirror for his mercy. Every scar turns into glass for his glory to shine through. It will confuse some who only knew the old you. They will try to understand how the one they saw fall so often now stands so tall. But they won't understand because they didn't see the process. They saw your silence, not your surrender. They saw your pain, not your prayer. What they missed was the alchemy of heaven, the turning of ashes into light. Now, when you walk into rooms, you won't need to announce change. The atmosphere will tell them. That's what unveiled glory does. It shifts environments without words. It carries peace into chaos, authority into confusion, warmth into coldness. People may not remember what you say, but they will remember how they felt in your presence. That's the evidence of glory revealed. You must also understand this. Unveiled glory attracts both wonder and warfare. When light shines, it exposes. Some will draw near, hungry for what they sense. Others will turn away because it confronts what they've hidden. Do not take offense. The light reveals, not condemns. Your job is not to dim for comfort, but to shine for truth. The unveiling will come with new opportunities, divine appointments, and strange favor. Doors that were once sealed will swing open, not because of effort, but because light unlocks what force could not. Glory is its own key. It opens spaces that intellect cannot. As you carry this light, humility will be your safeguard. Glory flows best through vessels that remember their source. You are not the fire, you are the wick through which fire moves. Stay yielded, and the flame will never flicker. This unveiling will also bring a deeper awareness of purpose. You'll begin to sense what your gifts were always meant for, and you'll find peace in using them. The striving will end because the understanding has begun. Glory doesn't compete, it completes. Chosen one. You've waited long enough behind the veil. Heaven says, step forward. The light is not coming, it's already here. It radiates from within, unstoppable and uncontainable. You are not just carrying glory, you are becoming its vessel, and through you, the world will glimpse what divine faithfulness truly looks like. Chosen one. Heaven has been preparing you for this, your commissioning. The season of hiding is over. The time for quiet formation has come to its end. You stand now at the threshold of divine deployment. You have been trained, tested, and trusted. What was built in the dark is ready to shine in the day. Heaven is sending you forth not as a wanderer, but as a warrior. This commissioning is sacred. It's not about position or applause. It's about alignment. It's heaven saying, you've learned to hear my voice in the storm. Now carry my word into the world. You've been through the fire, not just to survive, but to carry flame. The world doesn't need another echo, it needs your roar. The message written into your soul is unlike any other, because no one else has walked your exact road. There's a shift in the air, the same kind of stillness that comes before dawn breaks. You are that dawn. You are heaven's answer to darkness in someone else's life. You have been commissioned to bring light where despair has built its walls, to speak life into hearts that no longer believe they can rise again. The Spirit whispered through the Apostle Peter in his first letter, chapter 2, verse 9, you are chosen people, royal priesthood, holy nation, God's own possession. Declare his praise. That verse isn't distant history, it's present reality. You are the embodiment of it. You were called out so you could call others in. Every wound you've carried becomes wisdom for someone else. Every loss you endured becomes language for their healing. The very places where you thought you were disqualified are where heaven now qualifies you. Commissioning doesn't mean the end of battles. It means you now fight from victory, not for it. You walk into new assignments covered in the authority that comes from survival. You know how to stand when the ground shakes, how to pray when the words run dry, how to keep walking when sight fades. You are no longer learning to endure. You are teaching others how to overcome. It's easy to think this next chapter is about doing more, but it's really about being more. You're stepping into identity, not performance. God isn't looking for perfection. He's looking for presence, and your presence, filled with His Spirit, becomes healing wherever you go. You are heaven's letter, written not on paper, but on hearts. Every word you speak, every act of kindness, every moment of courage becomes ink on the souls of those who meet you. You might never see the full ripple of your obedience, but heaven does. You don't have to change the whole world. You only need to touch the one in front of you. That's how revival starts, one act of obedience at a time. So as you step forward, remember, you are not alone. The same angels who gathered around you before now go before you. The same voice that called you out of darkness now calls you into influence. You don't need to force it, just flow with it. The river of destiny already knows where to go. And as this message stirs something in you, if you feel that holy electricity in your spirit, that sense that heaven is speaking directly to your soul, let that be your sign. Take a small but powerful step. Like this message, if it resonates with you, not out of routine, but as a quiet amen when you share it. Think of it as passing a torch across a dark valley, handing light to someone who's forgotten how to see. And if this space has become a source of strength for you, stay connected. Subscribe not to a channel, but to a journey, a fellowship of chosen ones rising together. Every word here is another spark in the global flame of awakening, and your presence matters. Leave a comment below, not just words, but something real. Maybe a sentence, maybe a testimony, maybe a thank you, God, because your story, when spoken, becomes a key that unlocks courage in someone else's heart. Your voice carries more power than you think. Chosen one, you are not merely surviving anymore. You are commissioned. You are heaven's messenger walking among men, carrying light in your footsteps and hope in your breath. The world may not understand it, but heaven celebrates it. And every time you show up with faith in your eyes, the darkness loses ground. The command has been given. The time has come. Step into your calling with the quiet confidence of one who knows this is what you were made for. The night fades. Chosen one, a faint light begins to stretch across the horizon of your soul. It's not just another morning, it's the dawn of fulfillment. You've waited long. You've prayed hard. And now the unseen becomes seen. What was promised in whispers begins to manifest in clarity. The long ache of expectation finally meets its answer. Heaven's timing, once hidden, now stands revealed before you. Fulfillment rarely arrives with fanfare. It comes quietly, like dew upon the grass, sudden, soft, and certain. You may wake one morning and realize the peace you've been chasing has finally found you. Or you'll see the promise in motion, not through miracle spectacles, but through the gentle unfolding of divine order. What once was chaos begins to align. The threads that never made sense now weave into a tapestry so intricate, only God could have designed it. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Habakkuk. Chapter 2, verse 3. Révélation await. Its appointed time, though it linger. Wait for it. Surely it comes. Look closely at your life. The signs of fulfillment are subtle but sure. The opportunities that align without strain, the relationships that feel divinely timed, the peace that settles without explanation, these are heaven's fingerprints. You've shifted from striving to flowing. What used to feel forced now unfolds naturally, as though life itself recognizes who you are. For years, you've carried faith like a seed. You watered it with tears, guarded it through storms, and refused to let the drought of discouragement kill it. That seed is sprouting now. You may not see the full tree yet, but its roots are deep and its fruit inevitable. The waiting was not wasted. It fertilized your faith. Fulfillment, for the chosen, is not merely about answered prayers, it's about alignment. It's the moment when your outer world begins to mirror your inner transformation. The peace within starts to produce order around you. You'll notice it in conversations, decisions, timing. Everything starts to harmonize with what heaven already completed in the unseen. This dawn doesn't mean an end to every challenge. It means you've been equipped to handle what comes next with grace. The same storms that once broke you now bow before you. You no longer react, you respond. You've learned that fulfillment isn't found in the absence of struggle, but in the presence of purpose. You've crossed from believing for to walking in. The promises you used to chase now begin to chase you. Doors open before you knock. Provision arrives before the need is voiced. Favor recognizes your name because heaven's seal is visible in the spirit. You are stepping into the rhythm of divine completion, where all things work together seamlessly. There's a peculiar stillness that follows fulfillment. It's not empty, it's sacred. You may feel it now, that deep sigh of relief your spirit releases when it finally recognizes home. You don't have to force anything anymore. The striving, the questioning, the fear, they fade in the light of assurance. You're no longer proving your faith, you're living it. And yet, even as this new dawn rises, humility remains your compass. The danger of fulfillment is forgetting who fulfilled. But you won't. You've been through too much to mistake grace for luck. You know what it cost to get here, the tears, the surrender, the moments of silence when you chose to trust anyway. That memory will keep your heart soft and your hands open. Fulfillment also carries responsibility. It's the moment when gratitude must become generosity. The blessings you hold now aren't meant to be hoarded, they're meant to be multiplied. Every answered prayer becomes a seed for someone else's hope. You are both the receiver and the vessel, the fulfilled and the fulfiller. As light grows stronger around you, you realize something profound. This is not the end of the journey, but the continuation at a higher rhythm. The dawn doesn't erase the night, it redeems it. Every moment of pain now shines with purpose. You see it all differently. What once felt cruel now feels sacred. What once felt like delay now looks like design. You stand in the soft glow of divine satisfaction, heart steady, soul anchored. Heaven's promises are no longer abstract, they are alive within you. You are walking proof that what God begins, He finishes. The dawn of fulfillment has arrived not as a shout, but as a sunrise. And as it rises, you realize something beautiful. Every promise kept was never about destination, it was always about transformation. Chosen one. The night is fully gone now. The first light that touched your spirit in silence has grown into full morning. Heaven stands still for a moment, watching as the eternal echo begins. It is not a single sound, it is the resonance of everything you have walked through, everything you have believed, and everything you have become. When heaven marks a life, that life becomes a sound, one that doesn't fade when you leave a room, one that lingers in eternity's air, long after words have ceased. You are that sound now, a living echo of divine faithfulness. What began in tears ends in testimony, and what once felt like isolation now rings with infinite purpose. The eternal echo is what happens when destiny and obedience collide. It's the moment when your story aligns so perfectly with God's will that it reverberates through realms seen and unseen. Angels recall your victories. Darkness remembers your resistance. Heaven calls your name, not as a question, but as a declaration. There is a silence in glory that carries weight, the kind that isn't empty but full. It's the silence right before heaven speaks your name again. This time with honor. For all the years you thought you were invisible, heaven was taking notes. For all the times you whispered prayers no one heard, eternity recorded them. Nothing was wasted, nothing was missed. As was proclaimed in the book of Revelation, chapter 3, verse 12, "The one who is victorious, I will make a pillar in the temple of my God. Never again will they leave it. I will write on them the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, the new Jerusalem, which is coming down out of heaven from my God. And I will also write on them my new name, Omsign, This is your eternal identity, not just chosen for a season, but for forever. The same hand that sealed you now inscribes a new name upon your spirit, one that carries the weight of your journey. You are not who you were. Every step, every scar, every surrender has shaped you into something heaven can display proudly, a living monument of mercy. The eternal echo is more than memory, it's motion. The vibration of your obedience continues to ripple outward, touching lives you'll never meet, shaping destinies you'll never see. When you forgave those who wronged you, the sound of forgiveness moved through generations. When you loved, when it was easier to hate, that love echoed beyond your timeline. The unseen is filled with the sound of your faith, and as eternity receives that sound, it amplifies it. What you've built in faith becomes part of heaven's melody. The angels harmonize with the rhythm of your surrender. The Father smiles, hearing his own spirit reflected back through the song of your life. That is glory to echo God's goodness until every dark corner trembles with light. You've reached the place beyond striving, beyond proving. You don't need validation. You carry revelation. You know who you are now, not because the world told you, but because heaven did. The crown you wear isn't made of gold. It's made of endurance, humility, and fire. The same flames that once threatened to consume you have become the light that surrounds you. The eternal echo also means legacy. What God has done in you will outlive you. Every word spoken in truth, every prayer whispered in faith, every act of compassion has been woven into eternity's fabric. Nothing fades in the kingdom, it only transforms. The echo of your obedience will continue long after your voice falls silent. This is how heaven measures victory, not by applause, but by echo. The measure of your faith will not be in what you collected, but in what you released. And you, beloved, have released light, love, and truth in immeasurable measure. So, stand still now. Breathe in the calm that follows completion. You have fought well, endured deeply, believed fiercely. The echoes of your faith now join heaven's eternal song. Earth may forget names, but eternity never forgets sounds, and your sound will never fade. The story that began in pain ends in purpose. The thread of divine intention runs through every chapter, binding all your moments into one eternal truth. You were chosen, and you remained faithful. The eternal echo is your reward, not applause, not comfort, but resonance. You have become sound itself, an everlasting reminder that light always wins, that faith always prevails, and that love never ends. And so, heaven whispers once more, not to command, but to commemorate. Well done, chosen one. If your heart has felt every word, if your spirit has burned a little brighter with each line, then you already know. This wasn't just a story, it was an encounter. Heaven has been speaking, and you have been listening. What you just journeyed through wasn't mere narration, it was transformation. You didn't read it by chance, you were summoned to it. Now, as this message comes to rest, let your response rise. If something here awakened your faith, or reminded you of who you truly are, don't keep it silent. Let the world hear your echo. Leave a comment below. Share a single line that reflects what this meant for you. Someone else might read your words and find the courage to believe again. If this message carried light to you, pass that light forward. Like this piece if it stirred your heart, not for recognition, but as a quiet amen to heaven. Share it so that another wandering soul might find their way home. You never know whose midnight will meet its dawn through a single act of obedience. And if you felt a connection here, if this voice has reminded you that you're not alone, subscribe. Stay part of this growing circle of fire and faith. Together, we're not just telling stories, we're building altars in the digital wilderness. One heart at a time. You are seen, you are loved, you are chosen, and your journey has only just begun.